Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's David Kameh and it is the 1st of February 2017. Hey listen, how is the best way, what's the best way, what's a good way do you think to undermine a country? What do you reckon? Bomb it or whatever? Yeah, you can do economic warfare, all sorts of things. But one way is, of course, to attach to the framework of the country, to the framework of the running of the country, the constitution, etc., to attach private corporations. And before I talk about that, I'm just going to give you a quote. Legislation.gov.uk, it's part of the British Constitution. This here, Bill of Rights 1688. I've read it to you before. It's under supremacy. And I do declare that no foreign prince, person, prelate, state or potentate hath or ought to have any jurisdiction, power, superiority, preeminence or authority, ecclesiastical or spiritual, within this realm, so help me God. So, nobody is allowed to have any authority within this country at all, unless, except the sovereign. That's the ultimate sovereign. The sovereignty. Nothing can take away the sovereignty from the sovereign. Nothing whatsoever. Whatsoever. And of course, the sovereign, when he or she goes into their position, swears an oath, quote, to maintain the laws of God and a true profession of the gospel. And that fits in with the common law, which of course is God's law implemented, God's law through Christ actually implemented by man's common sense and reason. We're a common law nation. Our ultimate sovereign, of course, is God himself. It goes through Christ, and we have the sovereign, who's the monarch, which is the embodiment of the sovereignty of the people, and it's all implemented within the law. The sovereign actually has to live within the law, and we've got that framework. It's a great framework. It works beautifully when it's not being undermined. What's a great way to undermine it? Well, attach a load of corporations to it, international ones. That's the best one. So attached to your local council, you've got ICLEI, an international corporation. Your money that you give to your council goes to an international corporation to bring in a one world controlled programme, which is basically what UN Agenda 21 Sustainable Development is. It's a step towards global government through your council, treason through your council. And it's done with your council here and an international corporation here, attached to it like a tick, like a parasite, sucking away your sovereignty, undermining your nation thereby. That's what's going on. And don't get me wrong, I would be willing to pay any taxes as long as they weren't going to fund wars, as long as they were small, as long as they didn't keep increasing, as long as they weren't used to undermine the country, with common purpose courses and everything else, as long as they were working towards getting rid of taxes altogether and putting in something, for example, tariffs on imported goods, which raises a lot of revenue and also protects the industries of your country. I don't mind. I think it's great. I love my country. I love my sovereign. I love the common law framework of my country. I love it. I do not want to undermine it. But what's happening is it's being undermined, and it's being undermined by attaching all these corporations to that framework. It goes back to this big privatisation. Now we've got the partnerships. I think IBM works in partnership with Somerset Police. I think somebody even told me IBM owns Somerset Police. I mean, what's that all about? An international for-profit corporation working with Somerset Police. You don't have a kingdom unless you have allegiance to the sovereign. That quote from Supremacy makes it very clear that the only one who is sovereign in our nation is the sovereign, obviously. The monarch. Nobody else has, nobody else has any jurisdiction beyond what extends from the monarch. Nobody else has any jurisdiction, power, or anything in our country unless that is the case. That's what it says in the Constitution. So what's going on when you're attaching these international corporations to that framework? Basically what you're doing, you're undermining the country. Of course, you're committing treason. You're committing the highest levels of crimes that there are. Because these outside corporations do not swear an oath of allegiance to the sovereign. They have their own interests. And their own interest will involve the undermining of this country. That's obvious. So let's think about council tax for a minute. Let's think about your local council. Your local council, initially it's a great idea to have a local council run, you know, however they get a bit of revenue, they work for you, they don't send the money to the government. It's not all, you know, it's not Agenda 21 going on, there's not common purpose courses and so on and so on. And they, you know, that would be fine. But what we have is local councils that practice extortion, harassment. You know, if you don't pay this council tax, if you don't contract with them, and they need your signature and your details in order for you to submit to their authority, because they are a corporation. And not only that, they're a corporation outside of the authority that's specified here under supremacy, because they work with corporations that are outside the authority deemed here, the jurisdiction here. You know, they work in these partnerships, you hear about it all the time. The people who collect your bins, the men who collect your bins and so on, they all work for a separate corporation. Council tax money goes to these private enterprises that have their own interests at hand. No, they're not sworn in, they don't have an oath of allegiance. So basically they're working like this with your council, which turns your council, it's basically a sort of farming off thing for corporations. It's creating, it's undermining the jurisdiction and authority of the country, isn't it? I mean, do you think that these partnerships, these businesses don't have any say in the running of the council? Of course they do. And besides, the council has CEOs, customer services. They are a corporation. It's almost like they're both. But you can't be both. You can't serve two masters. You can either be directly under the authority of the sovereign in accord with it through an oath of allegiance, or not. As soon as you step outside it, you're outside it. You're breaking the constitution. What happens if people don't pay their council tax, if they move and they don't fill in all the forms, they don't contract with them on this rolling contract, and it is a contract? What happens is, without them knowing, that a court is a court. The court's just hired by the local council. Not a common law court, not a court of the land. A court is set up. You don't even know about it, and you get a letter a few weeks later saying that they found against you and they're sending around enforcement. You know, with their notices of arrest and all this nonsense. And you look into the enforcement. Who's this enforcement? Oh, it's Masters or something like that. Some outside corporation being paid for by the council to go and harass you to get money from you. They don't have any oath of allegiance, these bailiffs. They used to, when everything was tight and normal. These men come round, harass you. They start quoting stupid little statutory instruments or whatever it is they quote. But what you have to say, of course, is that they have no jurisdiction whatsoever, because the jurisdiction of the country is only in accord with the sovereign. Do they have an oath of office? Are they working for the sovereign, or are they working as a private enterprise, lining their own pockets? Many of them do. They're very nice cars. These bailiffs, they're doing very well indeed. These private corporations that are used. The court is a private corporation that's hired. The magistrates there aren't under oath. They're all acting unlawfully. So it's just very, very important, isn't it, to realise what the jurisdiction of this country is. It's underlined under supremacy. The jurisdiction of this country is in accord with the sovereign and accord with the law of this land. And anything that steps outside that or claims to have any authority beyond that is void, or is in fact undermining the country, surely. The only jurisdiction is that with the monarch at the head, and also God and through Christ at the head of that. That's the only authority. However, what's happening is, of course, I suspect they know exactly what they're doing in order to undermine the country. And you can see it in the media, the way they obscure everything. They've hidden the common law. They undermine the monarch. The monarch, the woman who is, and the people who are in the royal family undermine themselves by their behaviour. And so slowly what's important begins to be obscured, and people begin to accept this corporate sort of world. You know, Marston's come round. Hey, we can have your money. Oh, right then. You're submitting to a for-profit corporation, a third-party interloper as well. You know, the case should be between, if there's any case at all, between you and the council, although that's impossible really, because it's common law is man on man. You know, who's this third-party interloper, this private corporation coming around knocking, asking for money? Who are they? They're breaking the Constitution. They're claiming authority when they haven't got it. As far as I'm concerned, ladies and gentlemen, they're committing extortion, fraud, harassment, treason, you name it. And it's undermining this country, destroying it, destroying all other countries in this world, this corporatisation, these partnerships. It's this internationalism dipping itself into local affairs as well, of course, you know, the ICLI and so on. So it is a very terrifying situation because they are so far down the road. And what is happening is, you know, it's fairly seamless, wasn't it? You had rates. The rates were reasonable, of course. They're quite small. And then seamlessly, it was all privatised. And then you're in contracts. And then you're accepting the authority of corporations, and you're signing it away with your signature and everything else. You're submitting to these corporations who act unlawfully, who break all procedure rules, by the way, as far as courts are concerned. In my experience, they break all the procedure rules, you know, which is perjury and so on, you know. So you submit to these corporations, and really that is what you're doing. You know, the people who do the bins or whatever, they are in effect getting the money from you through your council, because they need their money. If the council doesn't get it from you, they can't get paid. So you see how it's all broken up, so you can't sort of, well, but no, it's not so much, but you've got the bin company, they want your money, don't they? If they haven't got it, then the council sues you on behalf, basically, of these corporations. That's what's really happening. If you want to see the energy of flow of things, that's actually what's happening, isn't it? So you've got corporations in control, in power, breaking the Constitution because it should only be the sovereign's jurisdiction and the sovereign's power. And they've done it in such a subtle way, you know, like I said, seamless. Paying rates, and suddenly you pay to an authorised, you know, a local authority that's in accord with the sovereign. And then what happened was, of course, then corporations came in. And what you're doing when you sign up for this, when you accept any of this authority that's fake and false and outside of the Constitution, you are buying in a corporate, ultimately an international corporate dictatorship. That's basically what's happening. And this is why it's so essential that you remain within the true jurisdiction of this country. Imagine it's a column, a perfect column. All these corporations like bloated parasites stuck on it. Stay within the gold of the column, not sucked into one of these dark grey corporations, which is really what's happening. So many people, they're just bowing down to these fake authorities. It's abundantly clear what the authority in this country is and the jurisdiction, and you have to remain in it. It's in the Constitution. It's absolutely clear. So that's what I wanted to say, ladies and gentlemen, today. In fact, you could say, by the way, that by submitting to these things, you're part of the conspiracy to commit treason, part of undermining the country, aren't you? Because if you're giving authority to something that actually isn't allowed lawfully to have authority, you're undermining the sovereign, you're committing treason. And yet, it's funny, isn't it, that people like you and me, people who have tried to withhold, who do withhold their council tax, and do hold their ground in these situations, lawfully and peacefully, we're attacked by everybody else. All these, they say, you're trying to undermine the Queen and all this. No, not at all. We're trying to restore what's good and right as much as we can, because we do not want to go under the authority of international or any other corporation that does not have any sort of allegiance whatsoever, or doesn't have total allegiance to the sovereign. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to be taking part in the treason. Thank you very much. Very kind of you to send me your invitations and your offers to contract, but I really don't want to join in. I really don't want to join in the undermining of the jurisdiction authority of my nation. And that's what they're doing. People who submit to these corporations, who accept their ridiculous jurisdiction, who do not know the law. I mean, there's plenty of people, of course, who say they know the law, but they only know the legal. They don't know the law anymore. They might have done law degrees or solicitors and so on, or they're lawyers. They're not really, they're legalers. They don't do law degrees, they do legal degrees. They have their heads sort of shaped by the nonsense of law degrees and such like. I was looking through a law book recently, and it was absolute doublespeak drivel, mind-bending rubbish. Whereas those who are trying to perfect the law, those who are trying to apply common law, those who are trying to stay within the jurisdiction of our sovereign, the law is actually very simple. The common law is very simple. Man on man. That's the situation. The sovereign. You respect the levels of government. The true levels. Not these fake ones. You have courts whose judges know the law and aren't bought and siphoned off by corporations and corporate jurisdiction. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, for us to get absolutely clear what the jurisdictions of our nations are, who the sovereign is, what the sovereignty is, what the authority is, and start sticking by it. And on that, and hold your ground as well. Again, always, peacefully and respectfully. Anyway, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching.